you mentioned the suits. I've heard you say this before. We don't necessarily need to be always relying upon solely their opinions, and I think people are kind of getting tired of it. I always use the term legacy media because the only way that I can describe it, right? Like listening to Stevie Nickel talk about Sokka and saying like, oh, when he, the famous quote, right? My opinion, it's famous. Yeah, rolls around, or like when he said that Sokka tends to be a player who, when he picks up a knock like this, he stays out for quite some time.
Yep.
I'm like, are you aware of the record this man has set and the number of appearances in a row he has as a player?
And
like,
no one checked him.
How this is a simple 5-minute Google search. I don't understand why a real fan would not have gotten that wrong. That's the only way I could put it. It's a real fan would not have gotten that wrong. And this is why I think what you're doing, the be serious movement, if you will, is it needs to happen. It needs to be here. The fans need more of this. I think shows like yours hold those folks accountable. Do you think we're ever going to reach a point where independent content creators carry more leverage in this space than legacy media and those pundits of yesteryear do?
I would be honest and say that they already do. I think when you look at, just go on YouTube and look at how many views ESPN gets versus AFTV or the Football Terrace or the United Stand. All of these YouTubers, they get more views, and there's a reason for that because people like watching their content over ESPN and Steve Nichols and these guys, Craig Burley and those guys. Nobody wants to watch them. No offense, but they don't, because the numbers speak for themselves. And I actually had the opportunity to be a guest on Grant Mall's podcast. I loved Grant. Everybody loved Grant, so rest in peace, Grant as well. But I did not know why he wanted me on his podcast. When he messaged me, I was like, why is he, because Grant Wall is like, he's the guy, I was like, I don't even know why you want to talk to me. And,
I mean, I could think of a few reasons, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But this is in the infancy of Shino's Arsenal, by the way. It was early on too. And I was like, I don't even know how you even know about me. And he was like, well, I saw your stuff. And, what I really like is that, you're not like everybody else, you're not, have a trained background, but that's the good thing about it, and I was like, wow, like he really knows what he's talking about. Like Grant is the guy, and he's actually telling me that like I'm valid, like what I'm saying is valid, what I do is valid, it's not a joke, and that always stuck with me, is that like this is where it's going. It's why these bigger companies are trying to replicate the types of content that these big channels that we watch all the time do. They're trying to replicate it, but they can't do it because it doesn't come across the same, because they don't have the right people. You can't replicate it. It's it's authentic.
You can't pretend to be a fan.
No, you can't pretend to be a fan, and you can't pretend to be younger and fresh and fun, because it's nobody wants to be spoken at. They want to be spoken to. They want to feel like their opinions are valid. And it's not like this, well, we understand it and you don't. Football fans, everybody gets it. We get it. It's a sport. We don't need you to break it down. We got it. We just want to hear other fans put their opinions out there and be entertained. Relax. Put your shoulders down. We don't need you to be up there like cool. It's like, I don't know. But I think it's independent content creators are going to be the thing. They just will. It's no different than any other industry where I feel like, the forefront of like most industries now are people that are influencers or people that create content. They're the people that bring the money in. I feel like football is the same thing. It's slower, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. People don't want to hear Alexi Lawless anymore. We're done.
Anymore. I mean, I would say, sometimes in general, I think, it's, and I'm with ESPN too. Again, no offense, I guess, per se, but I've never hit mute on a halftime show faster in my life. And I watch La Liga, so I'm forced to deal with ESPN every single weekend. but I think, I agree with you. Some people will call me bullish in saying what you just said in terms of I believe even in the US that independent content creators, even the ones that are soccer specific or football specific, carry more weight and leverage, and will continue to do so than legacy media. I think that, like you said, they're trying to copy and mimic everything that YouTubers have been doing for years now. But there is that difference, right, between what's going on in the UK with creation and what's going on here. And I will even say what's going on here is, in a good flattery way, if you will, right, mimic what's going on overseas in the UK. You lived there once upon a time. I mean, very recently, I imagine, right? And you lived there for quite some
Yeah.
time. I feel like your brand took off in the UK. Seeing you appear on the Football Terrace, a show that I watch a good amount. I've watched a little bit less because obviously, when Arsenal
When
loses,
Arsenal are not doing well,
it's the worst. It is absolutely the worst. Like I just can't tune into it. Like I'll start to get upset, and I'm like, I can't do this right now. I'll have to go for a run or something. But I think, like you having experienced both sides,
Mhm.
what does this side of the world need to do? I feel like we're scrambling and just trying to keep up, and while we feel like we're being gate kept a little bit, right? Because it's not our league. It's, we're not local to any of these clubs, but we still want to talk about it because we're so passionate about it. You know, is what is the gap between what happens here and what's going on in the UK with content, with the culture, the people, the fans, the clubs, the cities? Like, you experienced all of it. I'm so jealous of that fact. And I would love to understand from your perspective just where the gaps really are.
Yeah, I feel like football over there is closer to the fans, where sports here feel farther away from the fans. Like it feels
Mhm.
like, yeah, I just don't feel like there's enough people in the US that are just popping on just like this and talking enough. It just feels very far away, if that makes sense. Like, um, I just feel like I don't see enough fans talking about the sport here as I do there. Every fan base, no matter if you follow Plymouth or Burnley or Arsenal, has a bunch of content creators talking about their games and got people watching it. But in America, it feels so different. I have fans that, or not fans, I have friends that have podcasts for like LAFC or something like that, but it's not as poppin' out here, and I'm not sure why. And I just feel like it's in the infancy in America, and you just have to keep going because the sport is growing. The fandom is growing. So the more people talk about it, the better, but you can't get deterred by the fact that you're not going to get as many views. And I feel like that's the thing. Is like when people start, they maybe stop because they don't see that there's like enough, but you have to get some people that just stick with it. But fans and football and community all go together in like the UK, all go together. After games, you go to the pub, you know, you talk about it all day. It's a part of your culture, your football team is. It's who you are, it's your identity. Everything that you do revolves around that schedule. Where I feel like sport here and soccer in particular is still kind of separate. It doesn't feel ingrained yet, but it's gonna get there. But I feel like also like Arsenal is definitely embedded in the community there because Arsenal used to be like a gun factory, and then that's how it started, and blah blah blah. So it's community based, where it's not the same with like MLS teams. It's not. It's just not. So yeah, then I guess yeah, I feel like we just have to keep talking and keep doing our part. That's
Yeah.
because it's so starting now. It really is starting. And I know they're trying to put a big emphasis on like trying to grow the MLS and obviously trying to grow NWSL, and that's great. But I also want to see more American fans bring the level of like community and fun and family and culture of European teams here because it's so niche and it's so small, but I feel like it could be so much bigger. And it's hard in LA. I don't know how it is for you in Texas, but in
No,
LA
I
it's
mean, it's
hard.
probably even more difficult than what you have in LA, to be honest.
Yeah, probably, huh? Because of the sports that are really popular there. I know in New York it's different. New
Hmm.
York is people are more invested in European football there, but in LA it feels difficult still.